Hi and welcome to Parent Sanctuary's How to Be a Grown-Up. These sessions have come about because as a new parent, I realised that I was now a grown-up, and I spent the last few years limping by trying to work out what I needed to do and how I got the advice that I needed to make sure that I ran my house properly, that I got the right things in place, that I was looking after my future and creating a future for my children as well. One of the things that I realised that was, despite my years working with people at the end of life in hospitals and in their own homes, I didn't actually know what happened from the person side of things, the family left behind, or what it was like to be the person who was coming to the end of their life. These guys were asleep 2 seconds ago, so please forgive their little murmurs as they want to get more comfortable. So working with people in their own homes as they were coming to the end of their life, I was very, very privileged to be part of that journey with them, but I realised I didn't know how to plan a funeral, what I'd need if I ended up being the grown-up, and also that if I had no idea about it now, then the only way I would learn is if I was that grown-up suffering with grief, worrying about my relative who's dying, worrying about what to do, and that's not exactly the best time to be learning new skills. So these sessions are designed to have an understanding of what is available, to broaden our outlook, and to see how there are so many people out there to help us with the end of our life. So we're joined today with Marion, who is going to tell us the belief system around end of life with the Bahai Faith. So I'm going to hand over to Marion and let her tell us a little bit. And if I've got any questions, then I will ask them at the end.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. What I would like to do first is briefly share the process of how Baha'is involve themselves in end-of-life care, how somebody's death, how we handle the fact that somebody's dying and near the end of life, and how that person indeed affects them, how they deal with it. So that's what I'll do first, and then I'll talk a little bit about Baha'i burial, and then I'd like to share, I think that will give an insight into some Baha'i belief. And so then I'll give a brief talk about the Bahai Faith. Without more ado. So when a Baha'i dies or is in the final stages of their lives, the family of the Baha'is and all the community of Baha'is will make every effort to support that person and their family, obviously, by visiting them, by talking with them, by sharing prayers with them written by the founders of our religion, and talking about and sharing about the life of the soul after death, of which we have a lot of writings, which I will share with you. We don't have any specific prayers or any ritual in the Baha'i Faith, so we all cope with that kind of a situation which is personal to each one. Chanted, some will be sung, some will be said. And Baha'is believe that life is eternal beyond this space of earth. In fact, this earth on this earth, we're preparing for the next life. That's our purpose. And how we do that is up to us, each individual. The main purpose then is to how we recognize God and how we serve other people, being the best person we can be and doing the best we can for others around us. Developing our spiritual qualities. So to be near a person who believes that and to share these beliefs is a great support, and to think what they've done in life, not what they've amassed, what they've attained personally, but how they've been able to share and to do those things with society. Every Baha'i wants to make society better. That's why we're here. That's what religion is for, to bring mankind together so that we can enjoy a better life and live in peace and unity. And sadly, we are in 2021 and we still haven't learned how to live in unity and peace worldwide, not even in our communities, which is very sad. And I'll come on to that subject later, prejudice. So in the Bahai Faith, we're all enjoined to make a will, which is an important part so that we don't create any discord once we've departed to the next world. Once our soul leaves, doesn't really leave the body, because we believe the soul has never been in the body, but we believe the soul associates with the body at the time about conception, and then disassociates itself for the next world on death, and it's eternal. And there are many worlds of God, and the soul continues to progress. The soul is not made up of any atoms, so it can't physically fall apart. It doesn't end. It's not material in any way. So that's the kind of belief that Baha'i has. And so the very purpose, as soon as we're born, in fact, we're on our way to the next world. And it's what we do in this world, how we are tested, what we do to prepare ourselves. And I remember recently talking about this with a group and here in Burnley, and we were thinking how we could put it visually. And everybody was doing different things and sharing. And I remember I drew a picture of a suitcase. And in this suitcase, I was going on holiday. So I put an arrow on all the things I would need for the journey from a suitcase. And one thing I'd left off, which I noted, was the toothpaste and a toothbrush. And as I was saying, well, it's okay, because when I get there, I can pick up my I can buy a new one. That's no problem. Now, what am I preparing for the journey into the next life? What am I going to pack in that suitcase? I'm going to pack all the qualities of love, freedom from prejudice, tolerance, generosity, forgiveness, patience, all the qualities that are human, means to be human. Those are the qualities. And once I've died, I can't go back and develop them. I have to then rely on the grace of God to develop all the disabilities I might have. So it's like a bit like a mum when you're carrying a child. You hope that child will develop physically perfect to enable it to progress in this world with ease. And it's the same thing with the next life. We have to take those spiritual qualities. And if we don't, it'll be a handicap in the next life. So that's briefly what Baha'is believe about life itself and how we handle someone dying. So it's not a sad time. In fact, it's a time to what they've prepared themselves for. And when they do pass on, when their soul disassociates itself from the body, then Baha'is are buried in a coffin, not cremated. And prayers are chosen by the family, and the community comes together to celebrate the life of that person, to remember their good deeds and to pray for them in the next life, because we're assured that they will pray for us at all. There is our life vein. It's not something separate. So we can, on that one point, well, every Bahai burial will be unique. And but on that point, it brings us often to the idea of heaven or hell. Well, Baha'is don't believe in a physical place of heaven or a physical hell. It's here now with us. We create our own heaven by our attitude and qualities in life and how we feel about others, how we can serve others. And our hell, for me, this is my personal view, would be when my soul goes to the next life. What didn't I do that I could have done better, or what should I be improved? It's too late then, so that would be my regret, but not in this place of punishment or purgatory or hell or anything physical, because the soul is not physical. So perhaps that's a little bit about how Baha'is view death. Not that we rejoice when somebody dies, we're absolutely heartbroken, like every normal person would be, because we're missing somebody, because we love them. But we know that we are assured by the founder of our religion writes that we will surely meet with them, our souls and spirit, and communicate but in a spiritual way and progress in all the worlds of God. So we know that it's not the end, we're not final, we're not thinking we'll never, that's the end of their life. And we remember them and we commemorate them and remember them in our prayers in the community as well. So shall I just carry on a little bit about the Bahai Faith? Rachel, do you want to say anything at that point?
I think that's beautiful. It must give great strength in a time where grief is incredibly raw. I think that one of the descriptions of grief I've had is that it's like a box and you have a ball that completely fills that box. So every time you move, that ball touches you and it hurts. But over time, that ball shrinks. So sometimes the ball has quite a way to travel to get to touch you and remind you of the hurt that the grief causes. But eventually it does, the ball never disappears, but it doesn't hit your pain points as often. Yeah, it's...
They say time is a great healer, but people also say, although I lost my husband, say, or wife 10 years ago, it's as though it was yesterday. So the time is what we've created here. There is no such thing as time, really. That's just what we have for here with days and nights. But in eternity, you're always with that person. And that grief you feel will be there until you maybe associate with them in the next world. So shall I talk a little bit about the Bahai Faith?
Yeah, please do, because I actually studied religious studies at GCSE level, and I remember being quite angry with the school system that my religious studies, to broaden my horizons and to give me a wider breadth of understanding of cultures around me, when I studied it prior to GCSE, it was broad. We had different faiths, different cultures, we covered different topics, but when I chose it as a GCSE subject, it was Christianity. And my GCSE religious studies was drawing pictures of churches when I lived in a very white centric area. So I'd chosen something to try and understand the world around me, and I was given back the village around me, which I remember being so cross, and just that's the subject that's been chosen for this school. And it was like, but there are lots of other religions that I need to learn about. And
there are other courses that doing in GCSE that do include other religions, but that was the one that your school had chosen just to base it on Christianity. So unfortunately, you didn't learn anything about Islam or Judaism or all the other world's great religions, which is a shame, really.
Yeah, I'd chosen it because I'd enjoyed the subject prior to that in learning about different faiths and the celebrations and the pomp and ceremony that goes with each religion. It's so special and so unique to each one, but they're all so similar in that they have these belief systems. And even looking at the Christian calendar and comparing it with the pagan calendar and things like that, there's just this little, like a running thread through them all, that sort of ties them all together. So I'm always interested in learning about religions, and I will put my foot in my mouth and I will say things that are wrong to the wrong person, but my heart is in the right place, and it's through that place of learning and making mistakes that I hope to grow. Yeah,
exactly. Well, Baha'is have lots of kinds of meetings, and one it's a basic level is to come to a fireside, to have a small group of people or whatever talking together about religion, or to join a study circle, which we have a distance learning system which is worldwide, and through that you can learn about the Bahai Faith and talk to anybody, or go to nothing and just talk to people who are Baha'is. I think the first thing that you mentioned there about religions being the same, and Baha'is say there is only one religion, that's the religion of God. And if we look at all the world religions and look in the essence of their teachings, not their ceremonies and rites and traditions, if we look at the essence is the same. They all believe in a creator, a God. They all believe we have a soul that continues in some form or other, a state of continuing after death of the body. They all believe in developing your own spiritual qualities to the best that you can, to be a good person. And there's no religion that teaches hate in its truest form. Whichever you read the Quran, you read the Torah, you read the Upanishads, the Zendavesta, whatever you read in any religion, the teachings are the same as the Baha'i teachings. It's the same spiritual teaching renewed. So if I can share a little analogy. If we think about, well, this is fact. We think about Abraham, maybe 5,000, 6,000 years ago, bringing religion and the idea of a one God, monotheistic religion. Some years later, 100 years later, 1,000 years later, we have Krishna in the East teaching the same spiritual truths. Followed 3,000 years ago or so by Moses, again preaching the same idea of one God and the virtues to practice that we live our daily lives, to bring unity. He brought unity to the tribes. Zoroaster in Persia, about 2,500 years ago, brings the same spiritual teachings, the symbolism of fire in that religion, showing that God is ever present, is the fire inside us, the love, the soul inside us. Teachings of Buddha, again, in India, 500 years after Christ, before Christ, sorry. And then we have the teachings of Jesus 2,000 years ago, who also talked about Moses and Abraham, the same Abrahamic religion. And then Muhammad, he prophesied again that he would return and there will be other message. We have the great prophet Muhammad, who brought the unity of nations, which is quite astounding. And his teachings, I mean, the very word salam alaikum is peace be upon you, which is like shalom in Hebrew, the same spiritual teachings. And Muhammad again prophesied that there will be another great teacher, there will be a time at the end. He was the last prophet prophesying that, but not the last messenger of God. And we view all these people as messengers. And in 1844, a man in Iran, which was then Persia, prophesied that he was that person, prophesied in the return of that same spirit in all the great religions. And he had a dual purpose, to share his message, but to prophesy for one who would come after him, who would bring all the world's religions together and create world peace, world unity, and a new age, a new era. And that person's name is Baha'u'llah, and that translated from Arabic means the glory of God. Thing that Baha'is believe, and you can't be a Baha'i if you don't agree that all the religions are one. No prejudice against any religion. They're all going on the same path. We can work together with all religions because it's only one religion. It might be dressed in different ways, but there is only one religion. And Baha'is, really, we don't have any traditions as yet. We certainly don't have any dogmas or superstitions, but we hope that our teachings are in harmony with all the world religions. In fact, they can't not be, because we accept them. So if I'm talking to a Muslim, I accept Prophet Muhammad just the same as Christ, no prejudice. So that's the first one of the unities, that we believe in there's only one God, there is only one religion. So therefore, all that, anything that debars us, any barrier we might have, is immediately gone, because we don't have any barrier against anyone. And the next thing is obviously the unity. There is only one race, the human race. So in order to be a Baha'i, you have to accept that there is no differences in religion. You accept them all without prejudice, and all people. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all very different. We have lots of different qualities. We have different traditions, which we must keep, our different languages, but there is only one race, the human race. So that will be a basis of creating world peace, world unity, when we rid ourselves of the prejudice of nationalism, religious prejudice. When we rid ourselves of these prejudices, we find that we can live in peace. So how do we bring about world peace? Just to think about it, people talk about it. In fact, often we hear of prayers for peace in all religions, and it's absolutely amazing that we do. But to pray, we believe, without action is not going to achieve very much. We have to put words, those words, into action. So how do we put them into action? We have to rid ourselves of the kinds of prejudice and inequalities that we see in the world. We have to work, science and religion has to work together to bring all the scientific benefits to the betterment of the world. But it has to be in line with religious principles, because without it, we can get nothing but, well, we've seen what we get without it. We can use something that be creative for destruction. It has no soul. It can be exploitative. It could be science for finances. If it's used tempered by religious principle, then that is wonderful. And if they work together, if religion rids itself free of its dogmas and superstitions and works with science and reason, then it moves society, it moves mankind forward. It creates peace, it creates prosperity. Another Baha'i belief, and I'm talking about when Baha'u'llah revealed this, was 1863, would be when he wrote and revealed many of these things. So it's more than 100 years ago. When he wrote, people were sending, in England, were sending little boys up chimneys to sweep chimneys and working down pits at the age of 5. So it was revolutionary then. And he talked about equality of education for all mankind. He talks about having no prejudice. He talks about the equality of men and women at a time when even we don't have equality of men and women now, and equality of opportunity, even in Western society. But he says that we're like two wings of a bird. And if both of the wings are given equal opportunities, that bird will soar. And society in the same way will soar. When women give all their qualities and to whatever undertaking, and men give theirs, and we work in harmony, we can have nothing but prosperity. So we believe in universal education, that everybody has a right, every child has a right in our community. We are very concerned with education. It's a priority for children to have classes. So where there are Baha'is in, maybe in some areas of the world, say the Congo, where they've been, or areas which have been war-torn, or areas where there's poverty, Baha'is start classes for children, and classes even for adults to educate them to read, because if you can't read, you can't decide for yourself. If I can't read, I have to believe what you tell me that you can read. So when I read it for myself, then I know and I can make my own decision. So universal education, equality of men and women, the science and religion. We also have a strong urge to choose a world language, either from one existing one or a new one, so that we can all speak together throughout the world. So we won't need to go to school and learn French and German and Spanish. We'll be able to go to school, learn the international language, maybe speak to in our own homes, we'll speak our own language, and probably yes, at schools, but then we will have an international language where we can then go anywhere in the world, and that removes barriers immediately, because we know what we're all saying, we know what we're talking, so it aids communication and the freedom of ideas and the flow of information. So a universal language. So I think perhaps one thing that is very important, that we believe in the abolishment of the extremes of poverty and wealth, that there should be a system, needs to be a system, whereby we have a fairer share. I'm not saying equality, because equality in everything is never going to be possible, and it's perhaps not the way that it will be done. That's not the way to achieve, to say everybody has got to have the same, because people will use their resources in different ways anyway, and we have to learn to strive. But a more equal distribution of wealth, because that's a barrier to people moving forward.
I follow a lot of the universal basic income pilots, and the fact that if you give people enough to pay their basic needs, so that they are fed, they are homed, they have got clothes,
Exactly.
If you give people the basics, they still have a drive to work. They have security to follow their passions, to be creative, to come up with ways to make the world a fairer, better place.
Yes.
But the people who are chained to working for minimum wage without hopes of increasing their career, without betterment in their career, without they're stuck on this loop of poverty and only just being able to afford things without having the more luxuries in life.
And what does that create? That creates, Rachel, it creates behaviours that are abnormal, because people are frustrated, people get depressed, and behaviours then follow that would not normally take place if they felt more secure. We can't all live luxuriously, and it's not important to do that. Enough is enough. We're not looking, and Baha'is certainly are mindful of that, and mindful of the service that we give to others, mindful that we set up in our communities classes for children, even here in Burnley, even in every community, Halifax, there are classes, children's classes everywhere. Classes for junior youth, at that stage in their life when they're looking to see how to behave, encouraging them, decision-making, giving them responsibilities, service to their friends. If we think outwardly of service to others is the way forward, we're going to create a more prosperous world, because everybody can do a little something for somebody to make the world a better place. So we're very mindful, Baha'is are, in every community. I mean, we are worldwide. I think just almost to Christianity was spread worldwide. They are in more countries than us, but we are in every country of the world. although we're not in numbers, we have spread throughout the world. So if you go to a Baha'i community in Mongolia or in the Congo or in Alaska, wherever, Australia, there are Baha'i communities believing what I believe and doing and feeling and how trying to work in their communities to make them better places. And there's nowhere better to start than in your neighbourhood. To look into the neighbourhood and then to work outwards.
I think there's a lot of people who would really resonate with what you've said as already what they're doing without knowing that it's part of the Bahai Faith.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who perhaps don't follow a religion,
Yes,
but they follow the same values, the same they uphold the same truths
yes,
as what you've
yes.
described.
Yeah.
So I can see that's a very easy way for people to find like-minded people.
Well, somebody was telling me on a Zoom meeting about last week, in fact, that he was speaking to a man and he said, I'm an atheist. He said, I don't believe in God. What I believe in is doing the best, being the best I can be and helping others. And my friend said, well, that's exactly what Baha'is believe. Probably the God that you don't believe in is the very God that we all believe in. So why don't you come and sit and talk and find out and see how your atheist views fit into my belief in a God, which is quite, not the God that maybe people think, what is God? What influence does he have? Why is it important to believe in God? But that's the very thing in a religion that unites us all. And it unites me with every other human being on earth, that there is God. That soul, that good in them is a reflection of the Spirit of God. And that's probably why we're very lucky, because Baha'u'llah revealed and wrote many writings and prayers in the 1800s, that we have them written down, that we have lots of prayers and writings and guidance in his own handwriting, so that we're not making things up. There's no need. We have an ocean of words, hundreds of volumes that we can refer to. Not that I've personally read hundreds of volumes, but we have books and prayers and writings that we can refer to guide us and to reassure us, because there's nothing worse than a person living without hope. You have to have hope that other people around you care for you and that there is a purpose in life. Otherwise, what do you see as your purpose? To amass a few bits of baubles and a fancy table and a house, which is absolutely, and you can't take it with you anyway, that's nothing. But what is absolutely wonderfully valuable and you feel rich is seeing smiles on the faces of your friends, knowing that you're happy with them and that if they need anything, they can come, or whatever, talking, they can come and see you, knowing that you can give them some real affection because you love mankind. And that's what we have to do. That for me is to love everybody, do the best we can be. So that's how I see it a little bit about that. I've shared you with by religion, there's an ocean of things, and afterwards I think, why didn't I say that? And but I mean, you can go to Bahai.org and it's all on the internet. It's all there for free for people. And there's Baha'i communities near you. There's a Baha'i community in Halifax. Are you in Halifax?
I'm not in Halifax, I'm in Huddersfield, so just next door to Halifax.
Well, yes, I lived in Greetland for 12 years. So, yeah, and the Baha'is in Huddersfield, yeah, in fact, as well. So there are Baha'i communities everywhere that people can enjoy and talk to. And there's, we do not proselytize and push people. We're here, like I'm talking to you now, just to share. And I'm always willing to listen to others, as we all should be, because we can all learn. We can all learn from each other, can't we?
Absolutely. This earth is for growth, for learning, for doing the best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's learning how to tie your shoelaces, or whether it's learning how to care for somebody else.
Mhm.
We're here,
Yeah.
and that is humanity, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, said that the most precious thing that any community can possess are its children. And that gives us a fantastic view to the importance of looking after children and giving them all the love and care and education that we can, so that they in turn can share that knowledge when they grow up or whatever they decide to do in life, to be the best they can.
There's a First Nation quote that says, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
And we are mere tenants of our earth, and it always belongs to the next generation, never to the generation that's using it.
Exactly. So it goes, with what I've said, that Baha'is are very, very mindful of the environment, very mindful. And a lot of the junior youth groups, when I'm just thinking of a big one, lots of them in Manchester, do a lot of service projects in the environment, not just litter picking, but planting trees, even worldwide, doing things for the environment, because this is where we live. And we're all on this earth and we can't get off it. So the best thing we can do is to look after it so that it will look after our children and our children's children and so on. Otherwise, what are they going to inherit? We have to be mindful of what we're doing. You know, for the sake of having a few extra luxuries now, we're damaging the environment. It's not worth it. Yeah,
Parent Sanctuary are taking even tiny babies out for walks in nature.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
Yes, we've had lockdown, and yes, we're all walked out because that's been the only thing to do. But actually, connecting with nature and slowing down to see the daisies growing, looking at the world through a toddler's eyes, it connects you to the land that you're in. It gives you a new sense of respect for it. If you're getting cross over the amount of litter, then you do something about it. If you're reconnecting, being part of Earth, it improves your well-being. It takes away, there's that much to watch. It's a real HD experience. There's that much to watch that your to-do list melts away. If you're taking your tiny babies out there, it's a sensory experience, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feel of the wind on their face. So we really encourage that, and we encourage parents to talk to their children about what they're seeing, to build those language bridges. So it's not just about being in the moment, it's all that education that comes from being in that moment. Well, Baha'u'llah says that God has created, we've got this earth, and there's everything in this earth that man needs. There is enough space for everyone. There's enough of wealth in its minerals and it's what it can grow for us. Everything here is a Garden of Eden. And the only reason that it isn't perfect is because man is spoiling it. So we have a duty and a responsibility as individuals, and we feel as Baha'is to care for our environment. And it says that the countryside is the place of the spirit. So we should have lots of green areas, especially for children, because that's the beauty of nature, not concrete, which is a shame if you live in a big city, but to have that experience of the green of nature is very important, in spaces. Probably why we all naturally want to think, let's get out into the country, or let's get to the seaside where we can see a vast expanse of ocean, because it's so spiritually refreshing. It's part of the biophilia hypotheses, that we are innately drawn to nature.
I don't want to take too much time, and I really enjoyed speaking to you, and I could speak to you for another hour easily. But is that sufficient for your recording?
I think so. So I'm gonna close off. Thank you very much, Marion, for joining me and enlightening me around the Bahai Faith. I was really intrigued as to how this religion has been around, and yet I hadn't heard of it before. But I obviously will know people who follow the faith who haven't been banging a drum in front of my face saying, join us. So thank you very much for that. And if you want to subscribe, follow, or leave any comments, ask any questions, then we can get those back across to Marion as we see them come in. So thank you very much. Bye bye.